Power. When we hear the word, we think of power in the world around us. People in power, powerful systems, the power of nature. What we don't realize is power is us. It's personal, passionate, and full of possibilities. This is Nicole Devlin, host of From the Nth Power podcast, a business and life coaching podcast that helps stuck, intelligent, overthinking mid-career professionals find powerful and purposeful work, giving you the freedom to live your most successful life. You have the power to love what you do, which starts by creating professional and personal growth alignment that will propel your life forward. Not creating this correlation leads to being stuck and unhappy, no matter how much you achieve. From the Nth Power is a new business foundation around your power and values. With a focus on self-actualization, Nicole will help you enhance your career or grow your business, creating a vocation that gives you the confidence and leadership to become whoever you desire. Hi, everybody. This is Nicole Devlin, and this is From the Nth Power podcast, where we talk about the business life. I'm a business life coach who helps overthinking, intelligent, mid-career professionals find more powerful and purposeful work so that they have the freedom to live truly successful lives. In this podcast, I do both interviews as well as my own little perspective from my business career on how to integrate, that feeling that you're moving along in your career and you're doing purposeful work and you're feeling powerful and intentional with this other side of life where I guess what people call work-life balance, where the truth is that in order to become a good business leader, you must be doing some sort of personal growth, personal development, self-actualization. They're not separate because leadership includes that aspect of personal development. So this podcast is about business and life, aka the business life, and how to grow your power in business by meeting yourself where you are and looking at your life as growth, because when you grow as an individual, you can grow a more healthy business. And when we have more healthy businesses out there, the world would become a better place instead of just something that's transactional and about making money. So today I have Cody Smith, and Cody has a great career in sales, and he has come up with this concept and business called Geared for Life. And the whole concept, as far as I can tell, and I'll give Cody a minute to explain himself a bit further and more accurately than me, is about this idea that you can track your progress. And by taking one small step and tracking what happens within and after that, you can actually make big and revolutionary leaps in your business and in your life outside of business. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to take one small step to make more big and revolutionary leaps. So let me go ahead and turn it over to Cody so he can introduce himself, and then we'll get into the podcast.
Hello to everyone. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I created Geared for Life a couple of years ago. It was a habit tracking concept that I kind of started using, and the whole Geared for Life, LIFE, and we break down the four main categories of your life, your LIFE, which is your livelihood, identity, fitness, and engagements. And we take that overall concept, and it's a habit tracking tool that essentially helps you track your way to success in whatever area you want.
Yeah. That sounds great. And certainly, I love the idea of taking some form of tracking analytics or even data and integrating that into personal progress, because that's exactly what my podcast is about. And I think people sometimes think that those things are separate, whatever, your livelihood, your identity, your engagement, and what was the F? Fitness, right? Like those are things you do when you have time outside of work. As opposed to I think what you're doing with your concept and with your business is trying to make it about both those things, which is the same thing I'm doing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you got here. I think you and I talked briefly about your life, about your past. And I also feel it's crucial to be looking at your life holistically, which includes how you were brought up and what you bring to the table. Because who you are, like I mentioned, as a business leader and as a human being in business is about your life and is about your personal experience. And you talk a lot about your negative childhood. So how is it that you have learned how to turn negativity in your child life or your your past life or your younger life? How have you learned to turn that into something more powerful? And then what would you suggest for other people who have maybe some types of trauma or negativity from their past and their childhood? How can they turn that into something more powerful as a business and even as a life?
Yeah, for sure. One of the most common pieces of advice that I give to most people is to surround yourself with positive, like-minded people. The old saying goes, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right? You don't necessarily know that you're growing up in a negative, somewhat challenging childhood until you get older and you look back on it, or you see other kids and you see the way that they live their lives and how they are with their parents and so on and so forth. So, when I lost my mom at age 11, I believe that was just life for me. That I was just destined for a life of loss. So essentially, I started surrounding myself with people who were the same way, and we all do that when we go through something in life. We want to cling to people that are like us in a sense. So that kept me in that frame of mind for a long time, and by that point in my life, I've already, I've seen death. I've watched my parents get divorced. I've watched my dad walk away from our family. And, long story short, but it wasn't until years later that I actually realized that I liked the overall concept of business and, entrepreneurship. And so that was my essentially guiding light. That was my ticket out of it. And I had a aunt and uncle that were very successful in business. They were real estate investors, by far the wealthiest people in our family and by far the wealthiest people that I've ever known. But, they weren't flashy with what they had. And, they lived in a normal house. They drove normal cars. They took trips, vacations. They owned their businesses. They ran their businesses. And, so I started to cling to that and to them in a sense. And, I associated wealth with business. And I thought that maybe that was my ticket, right? Trying to surround myself with something that I essentially wanted. I read the books that they told me to read. I went to the, events that they told me to go to. When I started surrounding myself with different people, I got to see what was actually possible. And the probably more importantly, I started believing that it was possible for me. And so my new circle of influence believed that it was possible for me too. Like I had family that believed that it was possible for me, which makes it ultimately easier for you. So, if you're younger and you have friends who are, negative and this is just what they're doing and so on and so forth, like you can guarantee that that's the way that you're going to ultimately be too. Yeah. And so when you engage with people who have what you want, something magical happens. They make you start to believe that you can have whatever they have too. And that belief alone is priceless, because from that point forward, that you're destined for greatness. You're destined for bigger and better things. So a major catalyst for changing my life at such a young age was just surrounding myself with better people.
I think people neglect to remember that, like I'm listening to you talk about your life and the loss and at such a young age. And I have a niece, my brother died when she was 9. And, that really reshapes someone's life at any age, but most particularly at such a young age. And I think what people then, like you said, so accurately, then sort of like, wow, I feel this way. Where do I find the other people who get it? Where do I, because we all want belonging, right? So whatever your experiences are, it's like, let me find the people who get it, who get me, because you start to feel isolated from these types of experiences. And what's interesting is that, like you said, that I never heard it that way about show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I've heard it, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. But it's the same concept, right? You're defining yourself by who and what you're surrounding yourself by. And now here's the other takeaway, though, that I think was really key. You happen to have a relative that you could then, that you saw as someone that you knew had something that you didn't. So, whatever people you surrounded yourself by, I'm sure you also then saw something more aspirational and attractive in your aunt and uncle. There's this pool of help and assistance and aspiration that is out there.
Yep.
And you just have to be able to see it. And clearly, I think what is unique about you is that you may or may not have known that you were looking for that, but somehow you were able to see it. And then something in you, that spark or whatever, clearly attached yourself to it so that you could learn, so that you could grow, so that you could be. And again, I think what you said was that you saw like business as a sort of a way up and entrepreneurship as a way up and out, or even just something that you wanted, right?
Yeah.
So people also, and I'll just land on this as a final comment, I don't think people really understand how powerfully motivating desire is. Like when you may not even know
True.
that what you want, but you want out of where you are. Like, so
Right.
you're like, I know that I don't want this, but I don't know what I do want. And people forget that, like, okay, that's okay, because that's enough. Because
Yeah.
just to know what you don't want is a step towards like opening your mind up to other possibilities. So tell me how the tracking habits thing started, like how you discovered that as part of this aspiration that is you and this desire for entrepreneurship. Like, where did the tracking habits thing come in, and why is that so powerful for you?
Yeah. So, um, the whole concept of habit tracking started when I became a licensed real estate agent.
Mhm.
And so I started hearing this concept of, track your progress, track your progress. And all of a sudden I was hearing it like everywhere, right? It's kind of like when you want to buy a certain car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. It's the same as that concept. I just kept hearing about progress and habits and,
Yeah.
all these things. You are a result of your habits. And so in sales, we tracked our daily numbers. We tracked the calls we made, the number of appointments we went on, the number of people we talked to, and each week we would hand in our sheet from the previous week. We'd pick up a new piece of paper and we carry that sheet with us for a whole week, and we track the same things.
Mhm.
And the owner of that company could essentially look back at our tracking sheet, and he could see where we were in relation to our goal. So that whole concept was to basically create a goal
Yeah.
and then create actions around achieving that goal. And that's what I did. And, it wasn't long after when I started in sales that I just realized that I was always working. So if you go back to like LIFE, livelihood, in the wealth section, I was in that section only. I was focused on that. I wasn't focused on anything else. And, I thought I was doing good. Right. And so being, my second year into sales, like you kind of start to, just me thinking about it, but why am I working so much if I can't enjoy the time with my family? I was just fixated on it because this was something new to me. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. We didn't grow up in fancy, houses with fancy cars. It was always hand-me-down clothes and,
Yeah.
things like that. So to me, this was a new realm to me, and I wanted to hold on to it as long as I possibly could. But it was around that time, like I said, I really started questioning, like, if I can have X, Y, Z, but I can't enjoy X, Y, Z, like, why am I doing any of this?
Yeah.
And so, I thought, if I can set a sales goal and I can create action around getting to that goal, how can I set other goals in life and do the same thing?
Right.
So as time went on, I basically became infatuated with like entrepreneurial type of people, high achieving people. And I really wanted to learn their overall everyday habits, their standards. I wanted to know what their daily life looked like and how they can essentially handle business and life and, the fruits of their labor and like all these things. But it was kind of funny. What I found was a lot of CEOs and a lot of, like high achieving people, they all were running the same pattern. They all had the same things in their lives, and they were excelling in the livelihood category. Their wealth was, off the charts. They were wealthy and it was what it was. But when you start looking at the main four categories of their life, they were, you know, those like patterns were almost all the same. first and foremost, they were divorced once, if not more than once. They had little to no relationship with their kids. They were out of shape. They were just like unhappy with their health. They had no hobbies, and once I saw these patterns with these people, it made me even want to dive even like deeper. Like how is this possible? How do these people have the wealth category figured out, but everything else in their life essentially sucks?
Right.
So it's like, how does this work? Like, and that's what I didn't want. And that's the road that I felt like I was going down. My, income kept going up, but everything else I felt like was very either stagnant or kind of going down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started looking at these people, I started noticing what things kind of went first, like what things they were kind of giving up first. And one of the first things that almost all of these people did was they started letting go of their hobbies. Yeah. So that would go into the I category, which would be, identity. And identity is more for you. It's what makes you you. And they would consistently put aside things that would make them happy, like golf, going to concerts, building a race car, whatever. They just stopped doing things that they love doing, not for money or fame, but for just genuine fun or self joy. They just stopped. So the second thing these people would give up was their health. They would stop exercising. They would eat fast food because it's easy, convenient, and cheap. And, I got to get back to the office right away. They'd work out tomorrow because today's just too packed. And I was just, at the office all day. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing would be their family. They would start to, lose that engagement in a sense with their kids, with their spouses. And so that the whole feeling of family started to kind of slip away. And that's what kind of hit me. That's where I kind of was. And I thought to myself, I thought I was doing great. Yeah. And so I started asking myself just one simple question: what does the superhero version of myself look like? And really started putting these steps in place. Same as that concept of, if I have this goal that I want to reach X number of dollars in a year, I need to make X number of phone calls, or I need to knock on X number of doors. It's the same kind of concept. If I want to have a better marriage, I need to have more engagement with my family, with my wife. I need to have date nights. I need to tell her I love her, or give her a note, like whatever the case is, but consistently do it. Like, it sounds good when you're like, oh, this sounds great, I'm going to do this for a week. Right. And everybody's all jazzed up about it. And then after that, it kind of starts to fade again. And so that's where, when those things happen, you're almost taking on too much. Yeah. And it's not consistent. You can't sustain that because you're just not used to it. But how can you break something down into a seemingly mind-numbing step?
And it is priorities. And I also believe that whatever one's story is or one's background is, two things. The first thing is that people come into the work world with their stuff, right? In your case, your stuff, whatever your experiences were. Mine were different, right? Like, I had a lot of lack and what I call like martyrdom poverty, like, oh, I don't need a lot. So when I came into the work world, I suffered from denying myself opportunity because I didn't know how to drive myself towards a goal. Right. Yeah. And I had this sense that people who drove themselves like that I didn't have like this money is the root of evil. I still don't have that. I don't have that at all. But I had this idea that people who drove themselves like that were somehow not the kind of people I wanted to be around. Right. Now, interesting to that point is that, being poor or wealthy doesn't make somebody per se uniquely someone I either want to be around or don't want to be around. But as I progressed in my career, what happened was a lot of the higher level people that were in the companies that I was working for, and I worked at one point for several years for a large financial services company. And I'm looking at these people, and honestly, Cody, at the end of the day, I'm like, don't want to be you. You couldn't pay me enough to do your job.
Yeah.
I don't know that like I want your life or your attitude or like, and because I'm just driven by different things. I want a successful feeling on the inside, and I want the money that comes from that's attracted to that, which I feel is true success. And I loved what you said about, like, if I could track these goals here, then why can't I do it over here? Whether it's, writing your wife notes or telling her you love her. And it's just about little reminders, and it's about priorities. But I do think that what happens is that people come into the work world with their stuff, and a lot of times are driven towards success and stuff and wealth, and they don't really see the forest through the trees. There's a lack of depth and weight. And for me, progress in life and true success comes from depth and weight. How did the tracking habits enable you to be more focused and make the changes you want to make, and then become that person who's not only successful, but also has the all the things in the LIFE? How did you do that specifically?
So one of the biggest changes that I think happened for me, and I didn't even know how much of an actual impact it was going to have until later down the road, was to be able to break something down, to be able to break down a problem or break down an actual goal. That was a huge change.
Mm-hmm.
So myself, just like many others, right? Like we look at a problem and we make it bigger by overthinking it, overanalyzing it. We do the
absolutely.
we do the same concept with like goals. So if you think about a very big goal that you have, it looks scary. It looks like this is years down the road. I'm not going to get there, or I'm not going to lose this much weight, or I'm never going to have that much money, or whatever the case is. You automatically start telling yourself that this is just too far.
Yeah.
When essentially it's not. It's one more step.
Yeah.
And so we set these goals and we think something, we think about something great that we want in our lives, but the goal is too far down the road. So we end up just giving up because we're too focused on the end result. And, we get fixated on why we don't have this right now, because we live in a world of like instant gratification, right? Where everything is so instant and it's knowledge, it's what we want. So we look at goals in the same sense. I set this goal on Tuesday. Why don't I have it by Thursday? Mm-hmm. Like it's just kind of so rather than sticking out that long-term goal, paying those dues, learning from it, growing from it, we often just give up too soon. And the reason for that is because we usually don't break it down small enough. And so that was probably one of my biggest changes, was just to be able to, look at a problem and really just start breaking it down and stop focusing on this end goal, this end result, this end thing. Because I was actually talking with one of my clients a couple of days ago, and I told him, because he just reached a very big goal, and we got to talking about how people win like gold medals, they win a race, they win whatever, and then they end up getting to this part where they feel like they kind of like plateaued, like what is next, type of thing. And I told him, I said, what was once your finish line is now your starting line to the next level. And so that's where we really started looking at these. Like when you start breaking down these goals and these problems, they're not as big as you might think, or as other people might think. It's one small step that's going to add up to one giant big leap. I mean, you can take the whole concept of walking from California to Maine, right? You can't just, in the blink of an eye, you're just there. Maybe one day, of course, but right now it's step after step. You pass one city, one state, and you keep going, and step after step after step. And those dues that you pay to reach that goal that's part of the overall journey. That's the actual journey. So that's why breaking it down is so, I don't even know the word. It's just powerful. It's a very powerful tool to be able to take your goal or your problem and really break it down and say, okay, what is the next step? What's the most singularly smallest step I could take? And maybe it's one more sales call. Maybe it's a simple text message to your spouse. Maybe it's a, I love you note to someone else. Maybe it's joining one more podcast, asking one more guest to be, whatever the case is, it's one more step. And so I can guarantee you, anybody that hears this, if you're going through a problem right now, or you're a challenge, or trying to reach a goal, or you've plateaued, if you feel stuck, it's probably because you haven't broken it down small enough to take one more step, just one more.
One of the struggles for people, and I know it's a struggle for me, like there's certain areas of my life where I don't gotta break nothing down into any steps. It's like I just flow, things come easy. It's like bada bing, bada boom, I'm at my goal, right? So I think the mental struggle is such that, like with this other area of my life where I'm more challenged, I'm like, ugh, I'm like a spoiled little brat. Like, right, oh, what do you mean I got to break it down into like another step? Like it should be easy, like this other area of my life. But it's just not like that. Nobody is like a master of everything. It just doesn't work like that. Like everybody has places and parts of their life where they tend to do better and excel. And I would like to actually put a plug out there promoting failure, because as people make progress, they really do think that there are some people who make instantaneous progress like that. Like they wake up one day and are successful. Yeah, there are people that are born into success or wealth or trust funds, but they're really the minority. But the truth is that failure isn't like, I mean, success, excuse me, and progress isn't like this. It's more like a stock ticker tape that it's kind of like, and then every once in a while you have like a dip where everybody goes, oh, the market's gone crazy. But the truth is we all know it's going to come back. Like, but when you're in it and you're losing money or the digits are going down, or when you're feeling depressed, you know, equating the stock ticker to life, you're like, oh, it's never going to work. It's not going to happen. But you still need to keep taking a step. And I think for me, the way you say that is encouraging, because it makes it so that even when I'm in a slump, I can understand that I don't have to try and climb out of like a 10-foot deep well. I just have to find like the next crag in the rock to put my fingernails into. And people just don't understand that, is that the dark times and the failures and the deep wells are pockets for greater success. They're like it's like you're almost going back into the womb to be rebirthed. Give people some concrete things that they can feel that they'll be able to achieve as a result of your big small steps and big leaps. Like, what were the biggest things that you've come to realize in your life as a result of tracking habits?
One of the examples I give is you never eat a whole pizza in one bite. And I'm a huge foodie, so you know, a lot of the way I you know, help clients is relating it to food. And one of the things that, you know, breaking down habits and breaking down small steps and goals and things like that is that, you know, you don't eat a whole pizza in one bite. It's one bite after the next. It's one slice after the next. It's so on and so forth. Right. And so that's the way that I did it. And I just started literally writing it out. And in Geared for Life, there's the way that it's actually laid out is from years of me just listening to, you know, YouTube and podcasts and just learning from different people and taking a lot of what they've taught and giving it to yourself. And one of the things that I can tell you is successful people are successful in certain areas because they found a formula that works for them. And their formula might not be your formula. And this was one of the hardest things for me to personally get over, was that I would look at somebody. I started out in real estate at 19, and I would see millionaires in their 40s owning real estate. And I would get discouraged because I wasn't at that level. And I'm like, I'm 19. I just bought my first property. I'm on top of the world. Why am I not driving around in Ferraris and Bentleys and everything else? Like I have $20 in my bank account, but I own this rental property. Like what's different, you know? But these people also have 20 years. And it's 20 years of not giving up. And you don't lose because you fail. You lose because you quit. And one of the things that helped me kept hanging on and kept taking one more step forward is the next small step. And it's taking that, like I'm 19, I'm not 43. I have one rental property. How can I get another one?
Right.
Like, because this guy obviously has 50 or 100 or 400. I have one, but I guarantee you he started out with possibly one as well. And so this goes back to kind of the very first thing, is surrounding yourself with people. So people who listen to these like podcasts, there's information on these podcasts for you to reach out to people and email them and talk to them and call them like, hey, I just bought my first rental property. How do I get number two? You know, I see that you have 300 or you manage 500 properties, or how do I do that too? And it's so funny, but you'll never, how does it go? You'll never hear a sincere congratulations from a hater. But somebody who truly believes in you will help you, and they'll give you the biggest praise for even the smallest step of progress, because those people know what that's like. They know what it's like to get beat down every single day and not give up. And it sincerely changes you. And back then, even though I owned rental properties, we owned multiple businesses, we were building buildings, we were doing all kinds of cool stuff, I didn't believe that it was possible for me. Like, what's the next small thing that you can do to get yourself to believe that it's possible? What's the next small step that you can do? And that made all the difference in the entire world.
We say this for Lotto in New York, right? You got to be in it to win it. Like you
Right.
mentioned quitting. You cannot quit. I always am motivated by the best is yet to come. I can leave something that doesn't quite feel right and still enjoy the benefit of other experiences because I have that attitude, which is like, I don't have to like everything. Not everything is for me. But also, you know, I want to say this about experience because people who are young, I mean, I feel like sometimes, you know, when you're older or wiser, you know, you say stuff like, well, it's going to take time. And people who are young and eager, when I was young and eager, I was like, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to be able, because I'm me, I'm going to be able to excel past you before your age. So you can give me all this malarkey about experience. It takes time, but I'm different. And the truth is it does take time. And time is a beautiful thing because time is the journey. And what you learn in the course of achieving your goals is going to be sometimes almost as valuable, if not more valuable, than the goal itself. So anyway, on that note, tell people what it is that you can do to help them or how to get in touch with you if they're interested in knowing more about tracking habits and Geared for Life. I'll turn it over to you so that you can finish it off.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mean, that was absolutely beautiful. I think just you knowing what group to be in says a lot about who you are and how you've possibly grown and what you used to think and what you think now. So, you know, it's one small step, you know. So, you know, if you want to learn more about what we do, you can go to gearedforlife.net. You can find us on social media at Get Geared for Life. You can go to Get Geared for Life. You can go onto our site. You can download the habit tracking app. It's on Android. It's on Apple Store as well. You can also download it right from the actual site as well. And we're always putting blogs on there, just different things that I think about and putting things on there and whatnot. But yeah, if you ever want to reach out, shoot me a email. You can shoot me an email at info@gearedforlife.net. And we'll be more than happy to talk and chat and go from there. So I have a strong feeling that this podcast might be a part one. So there might be a part two to this later on down the road, and maybe we can dive into some more of, you know, habits and how people can actually use that. But it's very, very powerful. I think what you're doing is great, and I look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, would love that. Yes, I have a podcast. It's called From the Empower. I also have a YouTube channel and Instagram of the same names. That's FROMTHENTHPOWER. I talk about exponentiality of business and business growth and how it attaches to your life and your personal growth. I seek to help overthinking, intelligent, mid-career, usually professionals, people who are probably at this stage, millennials or Gen Xers as far as an age demographic, and you're stuck in your career and you don't know what's next and you're not feeling purposeful or powerful in your work. I want you to feel that way. Obviously, Cody wants you to feel that way because we both know that stuck work is like a death sentence, and you can have all the money you think you need or want, and if you still don't have those other parts of your life in place or you're not paying attention to them, that success becomes like a ball and chain and ultimately like a death sentence if you become so unhealthy that you become ill. And that's a reality of life. You know, sickness is not something that just pops up. It's usually a byproduct of misuse of the body over many, many, many years. So if you are stuck and feeling unhappy and frustrated in your career, please get in touch with me either through just starting to engage with my podcast or finding me on Instagram or YouTube. And of course, you can shoot me an email at Nicole@NicoleDevlin.com. And that is the name of my website as well, NicoleDevlin.com. Thanks for joining me for another From the Nth Power podcast. And I hope you all have a great day.